Welcome to a Lovely Yarn podcast. This is episode 15. I am filming from the rolling hills of western Pennsylvania. This is actually my third time filming this podcast. I filmed the first time this past Friday. It is now Monday. I think it's the 14th of January. But I filmed this past Friday and I just wasn't really feeling into it, wasn't feeling well. So, and you could tell when I was editing it, I could tell. So I really wasn't excited about putting that footage out. And then I filmed yesterday while all of my family was outside. I usually don't film on the weekends because it's, I don't really, we focus on family things, but they all went outside to sled ride and stuff, and it was quiet in the house. But I was super bummed because I was happy with the way it turned out until I was editing it, and then about 15 minutes into it, something messed up with my microphone. I think I turned the volume up a little bit too high and it was really staticky, like you could hardly even hear me talking. So I'm a little nervous today because I'm using the same microphone. I have done probably 10 to 15 sound checks, and I think that as long as I don't turn it up past a certain volume, then we should be static free. Because if I edit this and find out that it needs re-recorded, I don't know. But I basically know, I think I should just know exactly what I need to talk about because this is my third time doing it. So let's just jump right into the knits. And I have 4 completed objects. And the reason I have so much, that's a lot for me, for like a 3-week time period, is because we were off for 2 weeks at Christmas. I homeschool my children and my husband took a week off at Christmas. So I had more time to knit. I definitely had more time to knit. So I have 4 completed projects. All right, the first thing I have to show you is my Farmhouse Shawl by Cabin 4. Oh, and I should mention, I will put I say this every time, but I will put all the links in the description of this video. I don't have a podcast page on Ravelry. I just kind of put everything right below the video, and most of the time I try to put like live links where you can actually click through. I'll also put my Instagram name down there in case you want to check me out on Instagram, which my Instagram account is mostly knitting. It's kind of evolved to that. But anyway, back to my finished object. It's the Farmhouse Shawl by Cabin 4. This is the third one of these that I've knitted. It's rather large. This one is actually for me. The other 2 that I knitted, I gave away as gifts. So I was really excited to have one for my own because I really like the look of this shawl. I like the fringe on it. I like the simplicity of it. And I think that it's also very classic looking. The only change that I made was I ended after the last garter section. I don't know how well you can see with this dark yarn. Oh, this is Highland, Cloudborn Highland worsted in the Espresso Heather. And I purchased this through Craftsy, which Craftsy is now completely switched over to Blueprint. So I guess, yeah, they're no longer Craftsy. But, so that's what the yarn is that I used for this. And it is a worsted weight, although I really think that it's probably a lighter worsted weight. And I knit this on size 10 needles, and I think I mentioned this before. The reason I did that is because I wanted to do size 9 needles, but I didn't have them. I was doing something else with them. I had another project that I was working on that I was using the size 9, so I just went up a size. So as you can see, it did make, like you can see, it made a, like a thinner fabric, but it actually, I originally intended for this to be a really thick, cozy shawl, but it is still definitely cozy and warm. It's just not what I originally envisioned it, but it's okay. It lays really nice. It has a really nice drape, so I think it will be more practical to wear inside. Where originally what I was thinking, I wanted to make something to be worn outside when I'm out and it's cold out. But the reason I'm okay with that is because I'm going to show you another shawl that I knit that is actually will serve that purpose. It's much thicker. Anyway, so as I was saying, the only adjustment that I'm pretty sure, I think it's the only adjustment I made, is after this last garter section, I immediately bound off. The pattern tells you to put in a little stockinette section before binding off, and that's what I did in the first two shawls that I made of this pattern. But I noticed that even after blocking and putting on the fringe, I was still getting a little bit of a roll up there from the stockinette, and I wasn't crazy about that, so this one I just decided to just end after the garter. I haven't worn it yet. I never wear my projects. That's probably a lie. I usually don't wear my projects before showing them on the podcast. But so yes, that's the Cabin 4 Farmhouse Shawl, third one. And if you are just getting started in knitting, this is a really good shawl pattern because it's very easy to follow the pattern, first of all. And then it's just purling and knitting with your and then you can learn one of the ways to increase on a shawl. So yeah, I don't know. I recommend this pattern for beginners. My next project that I finished, this is a pair of socks. These are the fur socks by Melody Hoffman of Bee Mandarins, and I actually think I have 4 projects that I've knitted from her, of her patterns, that I'm going to be showing you this podcast. And the yarn is from Emma of Woolly Mammoth Fiber Co. in the Turf colorway. This is her natural sock base, so it's 100% wool, no nylon, and it's non-superwash. And I have to say, I think this might be the first pair of socks that I've knitted that is that didn't have. No, I did knit. My very first pair of socks I ever knitted were 100% merino wool, which was a mistake because merino is not a very durable yarn. And I knit those back when I first started to knit, so I wasn't really aware of all the things that I know now. And so those quickly wore out. But other than that, I believe that this is the first pair of plain wool, no nylon added socks I've ever knitted, and I really, really like them. So let me just zoom in on the stitch pattern because it's really, really beautiful, and it's actually very simple to get that texture, and I really like it, and it makes a nice thick warm fabric as well. Okay, so one thing about the pattern is I normally knit my socks on a size 1 US needle, and I cast on 64 stitches. So this pattern has 2 sizes. You can either cast on 56 or 64. So I just immediately went with my 64 count because that's what I always do. And it was on, it's made, they call for a size 1 needle. But I got part, like, I don't know, maybe down to here, and I realized that they were going to be way too big on me. So I ripped it out and I cast on with 56 stitches. Now, they fit me, but if they were any bit smaller, I would probably not be able to get them up over my heels. So I think what I'm going to do next time is maybe still cast on 56 stitches, but go up a needle size. Maybe go up to 1.5 for size 2 US needle size, and I think that might give me a little bit more room. But let's see what else I can say. I don't know, I just really enjoyed knitting these. I really, really enjoyed working with Emma's yarn. I think I'm going to be a big fan of 100% sock wool. So, and I can't remember what this particular wool is, but you know, you guys know, some are more durable than others, so this would be a more durable wool. And I like the feel of it. I really like the feel of it. And it makes a very sturdy sock. I don't know if you guys can hear, my dog is outside my door whining because she wants in. I don't think I have anything else to say. I think other than what I've already told you, I followed the pattern exactly as it was written. And I really liked it. And I have one other skein of Emma's that I purchased the same time I purchased this, and it's also a natural sock. So I will be making another pair of socks. And now that I've shown you these, I am really excited. I might even just put them on today and wear them today. So I'm sure you've probably heard of Woolly Mammoth Fiber Co., but if you haven't, you should check out her yarn. She does frequent updates, and eventually I would like to buy like her DK weight. I love the peony colorway. I've looked at that multiple times when she's done updates. I always look at that color. It's really pretty. But so I'm hoping that maybe this summer when she does an update, I can get some more of her yarn. She is based somewhere in, where is she? Ireland somewhere, I believe. I might be wrong about that. My third finished object, and I guess maybe I shouldn't say this is completely finished because I still need to do a little bit of finishing work on it. It's another pattern by Melody Hoffman. It's the Treehouse Hat. And I purchased this pattern when it was first released as an individual pattern that you could buy, because I think it was part of the 6-bit storybook when it originally came out. And I know she also has mitts that match this, that have the same pattern on them. So I bought this pattern and I just kind of filed it away in my binder. I keep a lot of my patterns. I print them off and then I put them in a binder and I organize it by whether it's for like your hands, feet, head, and then I have a section for sweaters, neck. It's just an easy way for me to keep my patterns organized. But anyway, so I had it in there and I finally decided to cast it on. And I really like it. I love the trees. I feel like it's so appropriate for this time of year because the only green we have here right now are the evergreen trees. And so I just thought this was really a nice pattern for me to be knitting in the middle of the winter. And I don't know, as a little side note, in my intro video, I don't know if you guys noticed, but there were both videos of snow and there were videos of nice sunny days with no snow, and that's the weather we've been having lately here in Pennsylvania. Was it last week or maybe the week before? We had a day that was 60 degrees. It was so nice. I spent most of the day outside. It was just so nice. We had another day that was like 48, which I think that day that I filmed when I'm walking my dog down the road, I think it was like 48 degrees that day, which is really warm for January. Today, actually we've gotten snow recently, and so it's not so warm anymore. It's around 20, maybe less Fahrenheit, and we're supposed to get quite a bit of snow this coming week. So, and we have quite a bit of snow now. It's really pretty, and the sun happens to be out today, which is just a wonderful gift. But anyway, back to the Treehouse Hat. Okay, so the only thing I wanted, I know, I did make some adjustments to this pattern. I just did 5 less rows before I started decreasing up here because it's a slouchy hat now, and I thought, I don't know, I didn't want it to be any slouchier. And then another thing that I did was the brim. I made the brims longer than the pattern called for. This is folded up. So sometimes the problem I have found with brimmed hats is that the brim, when you roll it up, when you fold it up, it doesn't always stay back. It kind of comes unfolded. So I thought that perhaps if I knitted this brim longer than what I normally do, that it would stay up. So I did that, and then when I tried it on, it was still kind of working its way out of place. So what I ended up doing is just going through everywhere there's a tree, I just put a little stitch to help keep that brim anchored in place. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to try this on. All right, so you can see it has a little bit of a slouchiness to it. And like I said, I did 5 rounds less than what the pattern called for before I started to decrease. The reason it's not completely finished is because I need to attach the pom-pom. and I need to fix the pom-pom. I made the pom-pom, but I haven't trimmed it up and rounded it off, so I need to do that. But I think that once I have the pom-pom attached, it'll help hold that slouch down so it's not sticking up in the back like a cone. I don't really go for that look. So I'm thinking that this, because this is actually, it's kind of a heavy pom-pom. I'm a little concerned about that. But we'll see how that works out. So I just need to fix this up and tie it on. When I do my pom-poms, I usually just tie them on so that I can, and then not knot it or weave in the ends. And the reason I do that is so when I wash the hat, I can take the pom-pom off. But this pom-pom's pretty heavy, so I'm thinking if I don't attach it securely and even go up and like really just weave into the pom-pom and into the hat to really anchor it down, I'm thinking it's going to wobble a lot. So I may not be able to remove this pom-pom when I wash. I'm going to have to play around with that and see. But yeah, so this hat is done. Other than this, I need to do this week so I can have a complete project. And I wanted to mention that I used these handy little pom-pom makers this time. These are from Clover. I'm sure there's other brands that you can get. We bought my daughter these probably 3 or 4 years ago for her birthday because she's very crafty. And they're so handy. I had never used them before. But when I finished that hat last week, it was late at night. And what I normally did, I would take a book and I would just wrap the yarn around it. And then I would tie it off and then I would trim my pom-pom. But I remembered that we had these, so I thought I'm going to try that. And it's definitely a good way to make a pom-pom. I think she has 4 different sizes. These are the 2 biggest ones that she has. But it was really cool how you do it. So that's how I made my pom-pom for the Treehouse hat. Now, the next project that I'm going to show is finished, and this, I alluded to this project on my last podcast. It is another pattern by Melody Hoffman. I told you I have quite a few of them this time. This is a test knit that I've been working on for her, and the pattern was originally supposed to be released earlier than what it now is being released. So now I think she said it's coming out in March. But we are permitted to give sneak peeks of it on social media. So I want to talk about this. Just to give a sneak peek, it's a very beautiful large shawl. But I also want to talk about it because of the yarn that I used. So here I'll just kind of... That's it folded in half. So it's very big. But as I mentioned on my last podcast, I knit this using my Handspun. And the reason I want to talk about this more is because I bought the fiber from Carolyn. She lives in Sweden, and her partner have a mill, a fiber mill. Now, when I had bought this, they were having their wool spun and processed at another fiber mill. But since that time, her and her partner Knut have actually purchased a fiber mill, and they are in the process of getting it up and running. And they just recently released their first fiber from that. I don't think they're doing spun yarn yet, but I know that they're definitely doing fiber that you can buy if you're a spinner and spin it yourself. So Carolyn informed me that they are going to be releasing some more of this particular fiber that I spun to make this. It's called Alruna, and it is a combination of Finn wool, Angora, and alpaca. And I actually think this was my favorite fiber I've ever spun. It's a very rustic tweedy, but not like super itchy. So when I say rustic, it's just very much close to the sheep. It's not overly processed. Like they don't use any chemicals. They don't use spinning oil. And I know even before they purchased this mill, they made sure that they worked with a mill that did not do that. So it's This fiber is very close to its natural state. I think they just used like hot water to clean the fiber before it was processed and made into a bat. So yes, I spun this from a bat. It came to me in this humongous bat, and I may have shown that in a previous podcast. I actually purchased this last winter and spun this all up. I think I had it all spun up by the summer, and I had it all done and ready to be knitted with, but it sat on my shelf with all my other hand spun yarn until Melody put a call out for this test knit, and I saw it and I thought, yeah, I think that would be a good match for that yarn. And so it is. It's a wonderful match, and I really love it. But Carolyn will be releasing more of this soon. I don't know an exact date. She didn't have an exact date as well, but I'm going to just link to her Instagram account. So I'll link to her like personal Instagram account, and then I will also link to their Instagram account they have for their shop. And that way you can follow her, and if you're interested in purchasing some of this fiber, then you're able to see when she's going to be doing the update. I ordered it in the cool color, and they also have a warm base. And my understanding is they're both gray. It's just that the cool has more of the cool tones in it, and then the warm is a little bit of a warmer tone. Let me show you up close. So like this is what I mean when I say tweedy. So when you're spinning this fiber up, it actually has quite a few neps. Sometimes you don't want neps when you're spinning. You don't want neps in your finished yarn, but in this case, you do. I love tweed yarn, and so this is just so pretty, and it's got different, you can't really see here, but it's got different colors in it. It's mostly gray, but it's got some darker, and it has some brown and little bits of blue. So, and it has a really pretty halo from the Angora and the alpaca, if you can see that. I don't know if you guys know, those of you that have been watching since the beginning probably do, but I used to have alpacas. We had 4 male alpacas, and we rehomed them we rehomed them in 2017. I had to have some surgery, and I was going to be out of commission for a while, and we were already thinking about rehoming them, but I have a friend who lives about 20 minutes away who had alpacas, and so we gave them to her, and she loves animals, so it made it easier. It was really hard for me to get to lose them, but it was knowing they were going to her helped the situation immensely. But we had the alpacas, and I also had Angora rabbits. So I have lots of alpaca and lots of Angora fiber that I can spin. But this is what you get with those fibers. You get that nice halo. Do I have anything else to say? Oh, yeah, so Melody said this will be releasing in March, and then Carolyn is on Patreon. She is, so I pay to have access to her videos on Patreon, and it's $6 a month, so it's very affordable, and it's worth it to me. She's extremely inspiring. All of her videos are absolutely stunningly beautiful. She puts a lot of time and thought into what she records, and I just really, really like supporting her and Canute that way, and I believe in what they're doing. I'm positive it's not easy to just buy an old mill and get it up and running. And it's been really interesting watching their process with that and the ups and downs that they've had. And I imagine it's probably pretty exhausting. But I look forward to getting more fiber from her in the future. She recently released some really beautiful blends with color. Because I think she started out, when I started following her on Patreon, she was actually dyeing yarn. So they were having fiber and yarn spun at a mill, and then she was dyeing yarn and selling that in the fiber. She would dye the fiber too. But now she is doing some dyeing, and they're focusing a lot on getting this mill up and running. So that is the end of my finished objects. All right, so I'm going to talk about my works in progress, which I really only have one that I would count as a work in progress. I mean, I have something else, but it's a long, ongoing work in progress. These are a pair of socks, another pair of socks. I like to knit socks. They're practical and they're portable, so I really like to knit socks. So here we go. These are the Hermione's Everyday Socks. I love this sock pattern. It's one that I knit quite often. And why do I love this sock pattern? Well, I love the fabric it produces. It makes a sturdy filling fabric and a thick fabric, and I don't know, it just really feels nice and warm when I wear the socks the socks I have out of this stitch pattern. So let me give you a close-up of it for those of you that haven't seen this pattern. And I believe this is a free pattern on Ravelry. Okay, this yarn is new to me. I've heard about it on several podcasts. Where did I put here it is, the label. Oh gosh, before we get into these socks, oh my gosh, how did I not mention this yarn? I had the tag sitting right here. So this yarn that I use to knit the Treehouse Hat, this is from Amber of Yarn and Time, and it is her Polworth base, the Cloudland base is what it's called. It's a DK weight, and the name of this is called Swamp Water, and it was dyed using wisteria and black beans. So let me give you, okay, that's her little company name, and here's the information. Oh my goodness, I can't believe I meant to mention that, and I mentioned it in the other two podcasts that I filmed previously, but this is it's a really pretty color green. It's not really showing up on screen as it looks in real life, of course, but yeah, so she does all natural dyeing, and I was really happy to be able to get a skein of hers. I think I bought this maybe back in the early fall when she did an update. She has some really pretty reddish colors right now that I absolutely love. But yeah, so I'll link her below, and you can head over and check her out on Instagram and check out her shop. So, all right, back to the socks. I still need to Kitchener stitch these shut. That's how I always close my toes up on my socks. I use the Kitchener stitch. I like the look of it. And it's not a hard thing for me to do, and I've done it enough that I don't have to look it up whenever I do it. But it does require a little bit of concentration. So when I finished this sock up last week, it was in the evening, and Brad and I were watching something on Netflix, and so I didn't want to be distracted while I was trying to close up the toe. So instead of closing the toe, I cast on the second sock, and I just started working on that. So I will definitely need to do this before I have to start my decreases, because I'm going to need these needles. Okay, so the yarn for this is the Retrosaria Mondum, which I just had the tag. There we go. Guys, I love this label. Look at that label. It's so cute. I love it. So cute. So this is color 208, and it is called Cran Apple, and this is 100% Portuguese wool. So this is another sock yarn that does not have nylon in it, and it's also not superwash. And I really like it. I'm definitely becoming a fan of sturdy sock yarn that does not have nylon in it and it has not been treated to be superwash. Of course, this probably would not be practical to give as a gift because I hand wash my socks. I don't mind that at all. I actually enjoy the process, hand washing them and then hanging them all to dry. But I know that that's not everybody's thing, especially a non-knitter. You know, that might be a big pain in the back end for them to have to do that. So I probably wouldn't knit these and give them as a gift because of the lack, you know, you'd have to hand wash them. Yeah, so I really like this yarn. I originally cast these on as just a plain stockinette sock. And then once, again, I probably got a couple inches into the stockinette and I thought, oh, I think this yarn would look nicer and feel nicer as with a pattern, with like a textured pattern. So I ended up doing that, and 64 stitches, 1x1 ribbing on size US 1 needles. And I use the 9-inch circulars, as you can see, and I've mentioned that before. So yeah, I'm just decreasing my gusset now, and I will hopefully finish these sometime this week, depending on how much extra time I have. Yeah, so that's it. So that's, other than this blanket, those are the only things I have that I'm working on currently. So this blanket is slowly growing. I have talked about this before. I probably put, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I put 10 squares on in the last 3 weeks since whenever I podcasted last. So, and I was able to incorporate some of my hand spun. So this one here is hand spun, and then this square is my yarn I spun from that Alruna Fiber that I was just talking about. This project is one that I work on when I'm feeling uninspired to work on other projects, or when I'm between projects and I'm trying to figure out what I want to make, because it's it's a mindless project. And I know a lot of people make these blankets. I also have another Afghan that I started in 2017 in the fall, and it's a granny stripe, but so it's crocheted, but it's with worsted weight yarn. And wouldn't you know, I still have that thing in a basket in my closet. I need to finish it. And the funny thing is, I probably only need to put on like another foot. And when you're using worsted weight yarn, that's not that much crocheting. And then I want to do a border around the outside of it, and then it would be done. But what happened was I ran out of yarn, so I had to order more, and then I kind of got out of it. I just lost momentum on it while I was waiting for the yarn to come. So I haven't worked on it for, I think, a year. Gosh. So I need to finish that, guys. And I probably should mention this cowl that I'm wearing, because I forget to do that sometimes. If I'm wearing something that I've finished a while ago, I sometimes forget to give information on it, and then sometimes people will ask. So I should just do that. Let me take it off. I think that will be better for you to see it. This is the Willow and Lace Cowl by Fox and Folk. It's a really beautiful cowl. This is knitted out of Quince & Co. Owl in the Elf colorway, and it's a really pretty undyed yarn, and it has like a nice halo. I forget what's in this. I forget the fiber makeup of this yarn. But I really think these, like the branch running through and then the leaves on it, I just really like that. It's so pretty. So yes, so that's something you can look up. I'll link her below. And this is perfect. The fit's perfect. It's nice, and I think it's just the perfect like tightness around my neck. Because sometimes I've made some cowls that are way too loose, so you don't really get the warmth. They just kind of hang. But then you don't want it to be so tight that it's constricting either. This is just a really nice in-between. So I wear this quite often, actually. All right, so the next thing I want to talk about what my plans are, what I'm going to cast on next. And The first thing is actually more of a practical thing. So I found this pattern for free on Knit Picks, I believe. Yeah, it's for felted bowls. So I want to make this big one. It has a little bit of color work in it. Let's do a zoom. Okay. So for those of you that have felted before, you know how this works. You knit the item, you make it a little bit bigger than what the finished project is supposed to be, and then you felt it. And so I have some yarn that would be perfect for felting, and I need a couple storage containers. So I'm going to make this one first, and then maybe even a smaller one depending on how the first one goes. And again, this is practical purposes because I do need a couple baskets for some things that I'm storing, and I have the yarn already to make it, so I figured I think that would be really nice to have. So that'll probably be my next cast on as soon as I finish these socks. But then I'm also going to be making the Georgetown cardigan by Hannah Fettig, and I forget which book of hers that it's in because I have several of her books, maybe Home and Away. And so I need this. This is also a practical knit because it's going to fill a gap in my wardrobe. I could really use a light gray warm cardigan. I have a lighter light gray, lighter as in weight, so it's not a real warm one. It would be good for like maybe a chilly spring day or fall day, but it's definitely not good for days when it's in the 20s and 30s, which is what we have for a good portion of the year during our winter months here. So I was a little bit nervous because the last cardigan I knit, I had a really hard time keeping it up on my shoulders, and I think that it's because it was knitted seamless using the raglan increases, and so I'm thinking that maybe that's not the best construction for me. I was talking to Emily of Goldberry Artisans, and she had also knitted this Georgetown cardigan, and she had done hers in pieces. So the pattern gives you two options. You can either do it mostly seamless, or you can do it in pieces and then seam it together. So I'm going to knit it in pieces and seam it together, and I will admit that this will be the first time that I've ever done a completely seamed sweater. And I'm not nervous about it. I'm not somebody that likes all the finishing work when I knit, so I don't really like weaving in ends. I don't like tying on fringe. I don't really like seaming things together. I definitely do it because I want to be able to use what I've just knitted, so I'm driven to get it done, but I just don't enjoy it, and maybe no one really enjoys that. I don't know. But so I'm going to do that. I've already bought the yarn. I didn't bring it up with me. It's downstairs, but it is Cascade 220 non-superwash, and it's in a light heathered gray, and I can't remember the colorway. I'll show more about it when I actually cast on the project and get it started. But I also could really use a black warm cardigan. I actually don't have any black cardigans at all, and I often find myself wishing I did. When I've shopped, I've looked for a black cardigan, but I've never found one that I've liked. And I try to be really careful about my clothing purchases, well, just my purchases in general. But with my clothing, because in the past I've bought stuff that I didn't really love, I learned like a couple years ago that that's not how I want to do it. I want to make sure if I buy a piece of clothing that I absolutely love it and it fits me well and it's something that I'm most likely going to keep for a long time. And I understand that, change your mind, styles change, that happens, but I just haven't been able to find a black cardigan that I like. And I want it to be cozy, and I want it to fit me well. I want it to be something I'm going to feel comfortable wearing because I think that I'll probably wear it quite frequently. And so I don't particularly enjoy knitting with black yarn. I honestly think I've only done it twice, and the reason I don't really enjoy it is because it's hard to see. And so my plan is I'm going to knit this Georgetown cardigan in the light gray, and I'm going to see how it fits. And if it's a really good fit for me, if I really like the finished product, then I am going to go ahead and get black yarn or like a dark charcoal yarn and go ahead and knit myself a cardigan with that. But before I put all that time into knitting a black yarn, I want to make sure that the cardigan's going to fit me well and stay up on my shoulders. So that is my next cast on. I'll link to that pattern below. And I think that's all. Those are my only immediate plans. I have plans, of course, but that's my only immediate. And speaking of that, so January comes and I always get in the mood to organize and to clean and to purge. And so I've been doing that both physically in our home, but also digitally. My inboxes, and last week I got onto Ravelry and I completely cleaned that out. I had 60 some shopping carts with patterns that I at one point thought I wanted to buy the pattern, and then I didn't. And so I went in and I completely emptied that out. And then I went into my favorites, and I don't think I've ever cleaned out my favorites on Ravelry. So I had patterns in there from back before I even knitted, when I was just crocheting. And a lot of what I had on there, I wasn't interested in knitting anymore or crocheting. So I went through and I deleted all of those. I emptied out my queue. I just cleaned it up. And I want to do the same thing with Pinterest. Of course, Pinterest has more than knitting. I have a knitting board on there, but I don't really use it a whole lot because I have Ravelry instead. But I will reference it every now and then. But on Pinterest, I have other crafts. I have a sewing board. I have several food boards and drinks and all that kind of stuff. But I want to clean that out, because when I get too much information, I get a bit overwhelmed, and then I don't even use that information. So I'm going to clean that all out. Another thing that my husband and I are doing right now is we are on a 3-month spending freeze. We do this from time to time. It's a really good practice. So basically that means we only buy necessities. Food, pay our bills, just necessities. Everything else is put on hold. And we don't really spend a lot of money anyway, but, little purchases, they add up. So it's fun for both of us because it's a challenge. You become much more mindful of where you're spending your money when you do a spending freeze, because you just become more aware of where you were spending your money. So because of that, I'm also not purchasing any yarn or patterns or anything fiber related for at least 3 months. We may even extend it a little bit longer. I don't know. But I will say that it's been really good. So we started this January 1st. Today is the 14th. So we're only 2 weeks into it. But even for my creative thinking and processes, it's been really good for me, because it's forced me to get into my studio, to look at what I have, to look at the patterns I've already purchased or found for free, and to base my making around those things. I have found that this is true for myself. Being on Instagram and seeing all the beautiful patterns and all these indie dyers who are producing such beautiful yarn, and I love to support that. But it's very easy to just buy and not actually use it to make. And I'm guilty of that. I've bought a lot of yarn with the intention of making. Sometimes I don't have a project in mind, but a lot of times I do. And but then it's the next thing comes around. I'm like, oh, I should get that to make this, or, oh, I really like that pattern, so I'm going to buy that pattern, but then I haven't knit the pattern that I just bought 4 weeks ago. I think some of you at least, understand what I'm saying. So not spending money on anything has really been inspiring to me in a creative way. Not just in my making, but just life in general. You definitely get more resourceful when you're not spending money. And I think it's good for your brain. I think it unlocks and turns on some parts of our brain that we don't use very often, because I think most of us probably live in a very affluent environment. When I say affluent, I don't mean wealthy. I mean, most of us probably aren't starving or in need. So that's basically what I need. It's easy. We have easy access to stuff. So when you tell yourself, I am not spending any money unless it's absolutely necessary, then it turns on a part of our brain, I think, that just makes us more creative and resourceful. That's what I have found in my own life every time we've done one of these spending freezes. And it's kind of fun. I like the challenge of it. So that's currently what we're doing. So I'm not going to be buying any yarn or patterns until at least the beginning of April. And yeah, I think that's all I'm going to say about that. I don't know. It's fun. Maybe you guys should try it, huh? Okay. One last thing I want to talk about before I end this podcast is a giveaway that I had won. So last year, at the end of the year, Kteni and Jessica, and I'll link them below, they sponsored a knit-along for the Weekender sweater. And I was planning on casting that sweater on, and I saw that they were hosting that, so I decided to join in on it, and I ended up winning the giveaway. So I want to show you guys the beautiful yarn that I won. All right, so Jessica sent me this really pretty postcard. That little Fair Isle sweater on it. And then I won this yarn from Lydia's Flock. She's on Instagram. I will link her. This is 100% Washington grown heritage breed wool, and it's Shetland yarn. And the sheep that it came from, his or her name is either Rafan or Rafa. I can't read the writing. Can't tell if that's an N or an H at the end. But this is a worsted weight yarn, 200 yards per skein. And I was super excited when I found out that I had won this. And let me show you. Okay, Lydia's Flock. There's her website. And so I got on her website, and she sells yarn, and then I think they might also sell fiber from time to time, although I could be wrong about that. So I basically have 400 yards of a worsted weight yarn. What should I do with it? I don't know. I'm going to have to think about this. Do you have any free patterns that, since I'm not buying patterns? Or I could just look at the patterns I have. But maybe you have a suggestion. 400 yards, worsted weight, a very nice sheepy, oh, I love sheepy yarn. Perhaps you have any suggestions? If you do, leave them below. So along with this beautiful yarn, I also received this little handmade bag. It's very cute. It's by, it says Michelle Rowley, Whidbey Island is the tag on the inside. That's a Great Notions pouch. And I was also sent some knitter's balm for my hands and a beautiful mix of calming tea. It's called Deep Sleep Tea. It's definitely got chamomile in there, and it looks like some hibiscus and lavender. And oh, here we go. Chamomile, lavender, peppermint, hibiscus, and raspberry leaf. So I have that to enjoy as well in the evenings. So thank you so much, Kteni and Jessica. And also, I believe the woman's name is Lydia that owns the shepherdess. Her name is Lydia. So I am very thankful for this giveaway, and I'm so excited that I won. It's always fun when you win a giveaway, when you get yarn. And that is, guys, that's all. And I'm hoping when I go to edit this, it'll be good and I'll be able to get this one published. I'm hoping I don't have to film for the 4th time. So you guys take care. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the podcast and would like to subscribe, there's a subscribe button down below. And I always appreciate comments. I like to hear from you guys. It's really exciting to me to be able to read comments and what you guys are up to and stuff. So feel free to leave a comment below as well. And I guess I will talk to you next time. Take care.